Hey guys, welcome back to yet another episode of Get Corporate Ready. In this series, we are touching on commonly asked interview questions. And the question for today is going to be, how do you handle pressure and tight deadlines, right? This is such an important question to ask, guys, because as you know, as you keep going into a corporate space and you start working, handling pressure is going to be something that's very, very important. How you juggle between different tasks, how you make sure you're managing stakeholders, that is what we are going in today. And we are going to take you through 3 core skills that are so important for you to be chatting about as you answer this question and how you're going to go about answering it. So you may wonder, why do we as recruiters or hiring managers even ask the question around handling pressure and tight deadlines? Well, as I said, in a corporate space, it is required of you to be able to juggle multiple things at any given point in time. And so it's important as we ask this question, because what we are trying to assess is, firstly, how do you handle your pressure? Are you someone that is adaptable, right? As you're busy with something and something else that's urgent comes about, are you able to flex around that? Are you able to really be able to put something down, make sure you know how you're prioritizing as well in terms of how you manage your tasks? But also, I think it's so important that we get a very good sense of your performance, right? We're able to predict what your future performance is based on how you answer this particular question. So make sure that you're listening in as I'm going to go through some of the key things you should be thinking about as you answer the question. And like I said, towards the end of the video, I'll be taking you through the 3 core skills that are important for you to have in mind as you're answering this question. The first thing that's important as you're answering this kind of question is firstly to provide an example, right? It's so important for you that as you answer these types of questions, you are not giving me what the ideal way of handling pressure and tight deadlines is. Give me an example of how you have handled tight deadlines and how you've managed pressure, right? So whether you're giving examples of back at school, because this is your first job that you're going into, or this may be one of many jobs that you've been in, you need to be thinking about, what type of example can I give to demonstrate me being in a high pressure scenario? How did I then handle it, right? So what's important for you is, before you go for your interview, to have thought through examples that you can use for this kind of a question. Once you have your example, now's the opportunity for you to start explaining the environment that you were in, the situation that you were in, right? As you explain the situation, it's so important for you, secondly, to be thinking about, what approach did I take towards solving this particular situation? I'm in a high pressure situation. I've got tight deadlines. I've got many people that I'm reporting into. What is your thought process that you went through in terms of, how am I going to actually tackle this, right? I'm under a lot of pressure. I've got a lot of deadlines. What approach did I take, right? So that's the second thing that's important for you to be thinking about in terms of how you go about answering this particular question. So firstly, the scenario. Secondly, the approach that you took in terms of answering this is also important. The third thing that's important for you as you are answering this particular question is highlighting your level of adaptability, right? Make sure that as you answer this question, you are trying to demonstrate to us how adaptable you are, right? And what this means is that you need to be able to take us through, firstly, your thinking, but also take us through a particular scenario where you had to adapt very quickly, where you had to think on your feet. Make sure you highlight this in the answer, because that's what's going to give us a sense of how you manage pressure. The fourth thing that's important for you is also being able to highlight how you went about communicating. Why is this important? Guys, remember, when you are in a corporate environment, you are going to be dealing with different tasks given to you potentially by different people. And some of them you're working on your own, some of them you're working within teams, right? So communication becomes such an important factor, because you need to be able to detail to us, how did you go about communicating to the various people that you're either accountable to, or the people that you're working with on that particular project, where you are, what you're stopping, what you're prioritizing, how you're going to go about and redo some of the work, or maybe change out some of the different deadlines that you have. How do you go about communicating? Communicating becomes very important as you are managing tight deadlines and pressure, because it's important for you to manage expectations, both with your team and with the people that the work is due to, right? So be able to manage the expectations with them so that they know that I said I was going to give this to you at this time, but unfortunately, this is what I'm prioritizing because of this reason. I'm going to give it to you at that date. So how you communicate becomes important. Make sure you are discussing this as you go through your answer for this particular question. And lastly, guys, it's so important for you as you're detailing the scenario that you're telling us about. Tell us, what was the result? How did this all result, right? How were you able to manage? What was that big thing that you had to flex around? How did you communicate it? But also, what was the end result of it? So anytime you are giving an example of a time that you dealt with something, you always make sure that you're rounding it up with the actual result. A nice tip that I think is always important is also for you to be able to take us a little bit through what were the lessons that you learned, right? It's so important for you to be the kind of person that's reflective on what it is that you go through. Take us through, this is the key lesson that I learned. Now, as I said to you in the beginning of the video, these are the 3 core skills that I think are so important for you to think about as you are answering this particular question, because this is what actually informs what it is we are looking for as recruiters. Now, the first one is time management. I'm sure you would have noticed that, right? As you're juggling lots of different things, how do you go about organizing your time? How do you go about reprioritizing the tasks that you have? So time management becomes a very important skill that we look for. So make sure that as you answer the question, you are answering the skill of time management. The second one that I think is absolutely important is communication. I spoke about the importance of communicating to different stakeholders, whether it's your team or the people that you're reporting into. So be able to demonstrate your communication ability in this particular answer as well. And lastly, problem solving is the most critical skill in this, because problem solving says to me that you are someone that is solution orientated. You're able to, in any tight situation or tight fix that you're in, make sure that you are focusing on what the actual solution is. So be someone that is solution orientated and make sure you're demonstrating your problem solving ability as you close off this question.